What's on the Shelf Wednesday is here on Thanksgiving Eve with James E. Pepper Bourbon and Rye, a historical brand that was resurrected back in 2017. Their Bourbon and Rye not only sport a historic name, but they are very affordable. Let's check them out on What's on the Shelf Wednesday. Welcome to What's on the Shelf Wednesday. I'm Jason C., and this is the series where I bring you quick reviews of whiskeys that you can actually find on the shelf, including bourbons, rye, scotches, Irish whiskeys, and more. So what's on the shelf today? James E. Pepper Bourbon and Rye. Take a closer look. So the Pepper family dates its American distilling experience to 1780, right in the heart of the Revolutionary War. James's grandfather was Elijah Pepper, who founded a distillery in Versailles, which is now home to Woodford Reserve. James's father, Oscar Pepper, inherited the distillery and rebranded it Old Oscar Pepper. On May 18, 1850, James was born at the family house on the distillery's property. At the young age of 15, after the death of his father, James inherited a portion of the distillery, but because he was a minor, Colonel E.H. Taylor, the bourbon legend, became James's guardian and oversaw much of the distillery operations. Man, Colonel Taylor's name just comes up constantly historically. That dude was everywhere. If there was a whiskey to be involved in, that guy, he was on it. Now, James initially struggled with the business and declared bankruptcy in 1877. But just 2 years later, James partnered with George Starkweather, who had recently purchased the closed Henry Clay Distillery in nearby Lexington. So honoring his grandfather's bourbon heritage, James used his family's original recipes and dubbed his whiskey Old 1776 in honor of the American Revolution. By the 1890s, the Pepper name was known among the wealthy and elite throughout the United States. His consequential decisions influenced the way we drink bourbon even to this day. Frustrated with Kentucky laws requiring distilleries to sell exclusively by the barrel, he took a stand. In 1890, he successfully introduced state legislation allowing his distillery to bottle its own products. Next, he added a strip stamp complete with a signature over the bottle's corks. Now, these stamps had to be broken to open up the bottle, ensuring quality. Consequently, this idea was adopted by the Bottle and Bond Act of 1897 and codified into U.S. law. Now, Pepper further assisted the passage of the Trademark Act in 1905 and the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906. Pepper died December 24th, 1906 on Christmas Eve in New York from complications shortly after an incident in which he slipped on ice. Now, the distillery survived his passing, weathered prohibition through medicinal prescriptions, and lasted until about 1958 when it finally ceased production. In 2008, the brand was relaunched by whiskey entrepreneur Amir Pei. Pei is a history buff and traces his own family whiskey legacy to the early days of the Republic. His fifth great-grandfather, Captain John Cassin, fought in the American Revolution alongside George Washington. Now, Pei contracted with several distilleries to recreate the original Pepper bourbon recipe and reintroduce the brand to the world. Pei petitioned for and received the original Pepper distillation permit number, DSP-KY-5, which was the first time a distillery had ever reopened under its original number at its original location. Pretty cool. Now, just this past September, they announced the distillery is building a brand new warehouse to increase its production capacity. The warehouse will be the company's first. Today, their whiskey is sold under the 1776 brand, the name that was distilled years ago in collaboration with the historic Lawrenceburg Distillery in Indiana, or MGP, or today, as we know it, they just changed it now to Ross and Squibb. All right, so glad you enjoyed that little walk down history, but now we're going to start with the 1776 Rye, James E. Pepper. 100 proof, non-chill filtered, 95% rye, 5% malted barley, aged 3 to 4 years, distilled in Indiana, cut to proof and hand bottled at the James E. Pepper Distillery using water from their own limestone well. Price of this one, only $30. All right, let's check out the rye. Here we go. Man, immediately you get hit with a lot of clove. Mint. like fresh mint. Not like, you know, artificial mint flavor, but this is very, very fresh mint flavor. Yeah, it's like a mint honey tea thing going on. It's very floral. You can definitely smell that rye grain. There's a little rye bread that comes through. Man, just a solid rye nose here. Let me try to get some air whipped into it here. How many of you guys out there just friggin' love Thanksgiving? I cannot wait to eat. Well, I'm cooking tomorrow, so I gotta make the turkey, the mashed potatoes, the stuffing, all the goodness. I'm making it all, and I can't wait. Just got a little hint of chocolate, too. Sometimes you get the chocolate note on a 95.5 rye, you know, out of MGP, every now and again. I think this one's here, but it's very faint. The floral, like minty, tea, honey aspect of it really kind of overtakes it, which is what you would expect for a younger rye, especially a 95.5. All right, let's give it a go. Nose matches the palate. You get all the notes, you get all the mint, you get the... actually got the little bit of chocolate right on the very, very end. Yeah, all the mint, the tea, almost like a lavender eucalyptus thing going on. Honey, a lot of spice. The 95 rye definitely comes through. Again, it's a younger rye, looking at 3 to 4 years old. I mean, there are a lot of great, cheaper rye whiskeys, you know, but those are mainly Kentucky ryes. You get into something like this, you get that high 95.5 mash bill for only 30 bucks to get into that. I'm digging that one. I want one last sip of this one. Yeah, there's almost like a peppermint thing happening. Just kind of perfect around this time of year. Yeah, it's minty, a lot of pepper, that floral component to it, a little bit of rye bread on the back end, very long peppery spice. If you like a, you know, a 95.5 rye, yeah, this will do. And I have a feeling this will go great in a cocktail. All right, let's go to the bourbon now. All right, so the bourbon's also 100 proof, non-chill filtered, 60% corn, 36% rye, 4% malted barley, aged 3 to 4 years. Now this will either be distilled at MGP in Indiana, Ross and Squibb, or at Bardstown Bourbon Company in Kentucky. So you can look at the back of the label for the state of distillation. This one says it was distilled in Kentucky, so that tells us Bardstown Bourbon Company distilled that. This is also cut to proof, hand bottled at the James E. Pepper Distillery using the magical water from their limestone well. Price, also 30 bucks. All right, let's try it. Oh, ton of citrus on this one. So this has the chocolate note too, but it's all wrapped with citrus, like orange peel, maybe even some lemon too. Little punch of caramel. One thing I do really like about this bottle is the label on it. I think it's got like a nice little modern quality to it, but also an old school feel with that big 1776, which is a throwback and a callback to the original label. Also the American Revolution, pretty cool. Yeah, so there's a slight youth note to this, but the citrus and the orange and all that high rye, those high rye components really come through. This one's also a little minty, but also sweeter on the nose. The caramel, the vanillas are really coming through. Yeah, both of them have this nice little faint chocolate note to it. Kind of cool. All right, let's try it. Another solid drinker. Yeah, if you guys like high rye bourbons, I mean, if you enjoy the Four Roses, like some of the single barrels at 35% rye, if you generally like the high rye MGP mash bills, again, this is that 36% rye mash bill as well. But man, this is really, really potent on the rye spice side, but also has a nice little leveled out, you know, sweetness to it. All right, second sip, a little bit more of the youthful notes started coming through here on the bourbon. Yeah, right on the back end, I think the orange is starting to kind of take over the mint and the rye spice a little bit. It's becoming a little bit more orange, chocolate, caramel, vanilla. Again, not the most complex bourbon you're gonna try. Remember, it's also a little bit on the young side, but I think that high rye mash bill actually helps it. I think if this was a high corn mash bill, it might even taste even younger. Yeah, straight up orange, chocolate, A lot of orange. The more you sip this, more the orange comes through, which I don't mind. A little bit of cinnamon on the back end, a lot of black pepper. Just a damn nice bourbon. I mean, for 30 bucks, these are pretty damn good. All right, so I'm gonna do a little comparison here. The George Remus bourbon, which is an MGP product. I'm sorry, Ross and Squibb. It's gonna take me a while to get used to that. There's also a high rye mash bill bourbon offering, but this is 40 bucks as opposed to the $30 here. But I also think the George Remus is a little bit older. So I just want to do a quick comparison and see if you're paying 10 bucks more for a little bit more age, or if this $30 bottle will do just fine. The noses are pretty similar, but this definitely has, when you compare it to the Remus, this has a little bit more youth to it. You get a little bit more of a youthful corn note to it when you compare it to the Remus. The Remus is just all citrus, cinnamon, all the good things you love about MGP. Man, this is even just more of a easy sipper compared to the James Pepper. I would say the James Pepper even has some more bite to it. Again, a little bit higher proof. You're only going 6 points more higher in the proof category. But the finish and the spice just lasts longer in the pepper than it does even on the Remus. So if you're a fan of the Remus, you don't want to spend 40, or you can't get this where you are, look for the James E. Pepper. I think this is a great $30 bourbon. When you're looking at that high of a mash bill, there's not many out there with a 36% mash bill that you're gonna get for 30 bucks. So if that has anything going for it, it's the price and high rye ratio that you're getting in comparison to other bourbons on the market. Now, when it comes to the rye, if you like a really spicy rye, if you like that 95.5 mash bill, for 30 bucks, this is really good. I also think this would probably be a great cocktail rye, but if you're a Kentucky rye enthusiast, you like the sweeter ryes. If you tend to lean towards Pikesville or, you know, Knob Creek or the Elijah Craig rye, or even a Wild Turkey rye or the Russell Reserve rye, this might not be for you. It has some of those similarities to it when it comes to the orange and some of those spicy flavors, but this has a way bigger peppery finish to it. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review for the James E. Pepper 1776 Bourbon and Rye. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the subscribe button below. Please hit the like button. If you haven't yet, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter. Before we go, I'm gonna make a James E. Pepper Bourye. Let's see how this goes. Before we go, I definitely want to say happy Thanksgiving to each and every one of you. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate the support you've given all throughout the year. You know, crack some good bottles open or share some great bottles with family and friends on Thanksgiving or this Thanksgiving weekend, whenever you guys celebrate. That's the best time to do it. All right, let's try the 1776 Bourye. That might be where it's at right there. Ooh, that's good. It's been a while since a blend worked. Yes. 1776, the Bourbon Rye Blend. I'm all over that one. Cheers, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. See you next time on The Mash and Drum. Gobble, gobble.